Hello. Hello. My name... Sorry, Hello. My name is Jeff Fallings. I am writing this, well, recording it really, as a hopes that it'll be used in its upcoming trial, because I've called the police and I know they're coming, but I also know that they won't believe me. To explain what happened, I'm going to go back a few weeks. This is where I believe the issue began. Sorry to use such proper language. I just feel like if I speak more fluently, maybe they'll take this a little more seriously than if I talked with my usual vocabulary, which is that of pretty much every other teen my age. So, a few weeks ago, that's when all the bad stuff started. I was hanging out with my best friend, Alice, and we were just hanging out at school, dicking around in math class at the end of the day. No one really paid attention during that class, but Alice had an idea. See, it was the last day of school until summer, and Alice had told me that she had bought a Ouija board. Now, of course, I don't believe in those things. I mean, what idiot would? It's just a piece of wood, but Alice was terrified. She said she wanted to use it. You see, her father had died recently, and she wanted to see if she could get into contact with him. I knew it was a bunch of bull, or I thought it was. And I told her I would use it with her. Really wish I hadn't. Because, well, you'll learn soon enough. We went to her house that night. Her parents allowed us to sleep in the same room, as we had been friends since we were little, and they knew we wouldn't get up to anything. So, Alice and I pulled out the Ouija board, and we started to use it. I'm kinda what's the name for it? The troublemaker of our friend group. So, of course, this was the perfect opportunity to mess with Alice, and I wasn't going to miss it. We got the board out, and we put our hands on the thing, whatever it's called. And to start off messing with Alice, you see, I study a lot about Ouija boards beforehand, just so I could know a lot to freak her out. I put the pointer, I'm going to call it, over to the Z. Alice instantly yelled at me and told me to stop. I guess she knew where I was going with that. But the next idea I had, which I thought would be plain and obviously a joke, really freaked her out. You see, after using the Ouija board for about 10 minutes with no luck, I decided to mess with her again. So, I spelled out the words, BoogieMan. Alice freaked out and jumped up. She yelled, "Did you do that? Did you do that?" And I said, "Yes, it was me. Calm down." And she told me, "Don't do that. That scared me." And I said, "Well, it's the Boogeyman. Alright, why would you be scared of the Boogeyman?" Alice then told me, "I used to have nightmares about the Boogeyman." "Really?" I said. I should be surprised, but I'm really not. Alice has never been the most brave of people. But, hey, she has the smarts to back it up, so I thought she would know that the Boogeyman wasn't real. "I used to have really bad nightmares about him. That's not funny, Jeff." Alright, I said. "Tell me about your nightmares." "What?" she said. "Tell me about your nightmares. I'm bored." Alice then told me about her strangely freaky nightmares. even from an outsider's perspective like my own, they were beyond weird. She told me that she used to have nightmares about waking up in the middle of the night. It was the same nightmare every time. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, and she'd go into her parents' room to find them dead. And that song, Here Comes the BoogieMan by Henry Hall, that plays at the end of the Jeepers Creepers movies, was playing, apparently. Wait, so you didn't actually see the BoogieMan? I asked. No, but he was there. How do you know he was there? The same way you always know the boogeyman's there. You just know. Uh-huh, I said. The rest of the night continued as usual, and then I went home. See, me and my girlfriend were both in summer school, which is why I had to go home for the next... We were going to continue to be in school for the next week. We were both troublemakers, and we had earned ourselves an extra week of school. Although, when I showed up to summer school the next day, my girlfriend wasn't there. Her name is Gloria, by the way, but we just call her G, as she hates being called Gloria. Where's G? I asked a few of the people around. We don't know, they said. Alright. The day went by as per usual, but I just had this weird feeling. I can't describe it really, just this feeling that something wasn't right. Not necessarily a scary feeling, or a bad feeling, just a feeling that something wasn't normal. As I walked home, I began to hum that song, now that Alice had it stuck in my head. Children, have you ever met the boogeyman before? No, of course you haven't, for you're much too good, I'm sure. Don't you be afraid of him if he should visit you. He's a great big coward, so I'll tell you what to do. Hush, 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 all the way home. When I got home, I was met with some really sad news. You see, I walked home and my mother, tears in her eyes, ran down and hugged me. Hi, Mom, I said. My dad walked into the room and put a hand on my shoulder. What's going on? It's G. My parents had met my girlfriend countless times, and she was already considered a member of the family. Her and her family... My father told me that G and her parents were found murdered. They had no idea who did it, as they didn't leave any traces of DNA behind, something that would usually be impossible. They really had no idea who could have done it, which is unbelievable. I mean, how could they not know? Nowadays, all you have to do is leave behind a skin cell and they can find you. How did they... I don't know. Well, I didn't know at the time. I do now. I went to school the next day and I didn't do any of my work. I wouldn't be doing any of my work for the rest of summer school. After her death, I shut myself off, really. I hardly talked to anyone other than my parents, and they were distraught as well, but not nearly as distraught as I was. Really hurts, too, because all my friends and stuff talk about how we're just teenagers. There's no way I could have possibly really been in love with her, but that's not the point. A human being died. A human being I was so close to died. It hurt. I stopped talking to my parents after a few days as well, and I spent all my time in my room. No light. But when I stopped listening to music and just stared in the darkness, that's when I would get that odd feeling again. Just like before, I just got that feeling like the day that she died. this? What is this feeling? I was overdramatic, I know. I was just upset. But not as upset as I would be the following day. I got home from school again to hear that the mysterious murderer had struck again. And this time, it was way worse than G. It was like he got Alice. And I know it's a he now, but Alice was found in her room, killed the same way that G and her family were. Poor Alice. She didn't do anything. Why her? Out of all the people to die, like, G was a troublemaker. I can understand a little bit why she would get targeted, but why Alice? Alice never hurt anybody. It's just not fair. But, understandably, my parents didn't make me go to summer school the rest of it. Well, they weren't planning on it, but the next day, I spent the whole time in bed. My mom walked in to try to get me to eat something, but I snapped at her. I yelled at her and slammed the door in her face and on her finger. I listened to her crying in the other room, but I just didn't listen, and I went back to bed. I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning with that horrible feeling again, way more intense, though, than it had ever been before. And I heard a song. When the shadows of the evening creep across the sky, and your mother comes upstairs to sing a lullaby, tell her that the boogeyman no longer frightens you. Uncle Henry very kindly told you what to do. Hush, hush, hush. What the hell? I thought. Mom, I called out. Without an answer, and the music stopped. Dad? Again, no answer. I opened my bedroom door and I crept out into the hallway calling for my parents. There was no answer. I looked all around the house and I couldn't find them. Their bedroom door was locked. But when I walked up, there was a horrible smell coming from inside their bedroom. Like sewage mixed with burning plastic. It was disgusting. Mom? Dad? I called out. And then, very faintly, I heard, tell him you've got soldiers in your bed, for he will never guess that they are only made of lead. I ran into the door with all my force, and I broke it. I broke the lock out of the frame. I went in the room, and it was dark, but the smell was unbearable. I covered my mouth and nose, and I turned the light on, and there were my parents. They were everywhere. My dad was lying on the floor, his head twisted backwards and his stomach open. Little pieces of what I assume were his organs were everywhere. My mom looked like she had been attacked by some kind of animal. She was all scratched and clawed, torn to ribbons. I screamed, and I threw up on the floor. I started crying, and I looked around, and when I did, I looked at the ceiling, and on the ceiling, in my parents' blood, were spelled out the words, BoogieMan. I now know what that feeling was, and I now know what Alice meant. I know the feeling. You just know when the boogeyman is nearby.